Hey, it's Coach Mac, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about up-tempo football and a drill that you can do with your players and your offense. You can do it in shorts, you can do it in full pads, you can do it spring football, you can do it over the summer, you can do it anytime you have access to your players. All you need is your players, a football, and maybe one other coach to spot the football up and down the field. One of the things for us, up-tempo for me was something that I kind of investigated and ended up adapting because I felt like I needed a way to kind of even the field and even level the playing field a little bit. About 8 or 9 years ago, I got to a point where I felt like there were 6 or 7 games a year where the opponents that we were playing always seemed to be a little bit better than us physically. And we tried everything in the weight room with our workouts, changing our speed and conditioning drills, and what it really came down to was more so Jims and Joes than X's and O's. It just seemed like for a while, we had some years and we had some good runs with some athletes, but never really had enough linemen where it felt like we could line up and do some things and really just play smash mouth football or line up and run the ball and just throw some play action stuff right at people. It felt like we always had to find a way that we could even or level the playing field. So up-tempo for us kind of gave us a way where we could maybe level things out a little bit by making conditioning a factor early. And maybe if we weren't physically good enough to run the football on people early, maybe we could be good enough to run the football on people later in the game if we could take their legs out and make conditioning a factor. I thought that maybe later in the game we could pick up in the running game area if we couldn't come out and physically dominate right away. Normally for us, we're in an area where we're playing 25 to 35 Division I football players a year. Probably going to see anywhere from 4 to 8 Division I defensive linemen and maybe 2 to 4 Division I linebackers. So offensively, you got to have a way to kind of combat that. So up-tempo football was our way to do that. Now, the thing to understand about up-tempo football and becoming a no-huddle team is you have to understand that you need to practice that way every day. Okay, it's not something that you can just dabble in or it's really not a hobby. It becomes a lifestyle and a mantra for your football team. You have to do it every day. You have to practice that way. You have to coach that way. You have to understand how you really want to change everything that you're doing in order to adapt to the philosophy of being an up-tempo football team. Okay, so one of the first things we had to do is we had to investigate how we wanted to become up-tempo, and one of the things you have to look at is, can you communicate your plays and how can you communicate your plays? Can you get all your verbiage into small chunks or small pieces of information with signals, whether it be wristbands, boards, signals, however you're going to do it? Can you get everything you want in your run game and your pass game, and can you get it communicated to your players with limited verbiage? Okay, so first thing we had to look at was our terminology, had to look at our communication, we had to figure out how we wanted to do this. All right, today as we speak in 2013, we are a straight signal team. Quarterback will tell the play to the lineman only. All right, the wide receivers will get the play from the sideline just like the quarterback does. And we are going to signal the plays with the coach on the sideline, signaling the plays straight into the quarterback and the wide receivers. We currently operate at 3 different tempos. All right, we have our generic no-huddle offense where there's going to be a short group huddle with the O-lineman, the quarterback, and the running backs. All right, and that's going to be about 3 yards from the ball. It's not going to be a traditional huddle. It's going to be a shorter sugar huddle. And the only reason we even use that is because we play some of the same opponents year in and year out, and I didn't want our terminology throughout 60 minutes of a game or 48 minutes of a game. I didn't want it to be used all over the field all the time. So one of the ways that we protect that is by getting into a short sugar huddle. The wide receivers will never huddle. All of our plays are signaled in. We'll never run them in or out with personnel. They're going to be signaled into the quarterback from the coach responsible for signaling the plays in. Next tempo that we use is our up-tempo, our high-speed stuff. That's when we want to snap the football in 12 to 15 seconds. We're never going to get in a huddle. There will be no sugar huddle. The linemen will line up in a formation. The receivers will line up in a formation. Quarterback and running back line up in a formation. Okay, we get the signal from the coach that's responsible for giving the signals in. Quarterback will relay that information to the offensive lineman in the back very quickly. Wide receivers will always get the plays just like the quarterback does. The quarterback is not responsible for relaying the plays out to the wide receivers. And then the next tempo that we use is what we call our freeze tempo. Our freeze tempo is a way for us to slow down, pass rush, slow down to get off of the defense, so we're not constantly going on the same snap count. But it's also used for us as a way to be a, check with me system. All right, in other words, I can freeze on the ball and try and see what kind of defense I'm getting. I can see where the bubbles are in the front. I can see what the leverage is in the coverage. I can see if they're trying to spin and rotate to any blitzes. So our freeze package can also be kind of a check with me package that we use. All right, so we're going to operate with those three tempos. We're going to be short sugar huddle, we're going to be no huddle, up-tempo, high speed, and then we're going to be no huddle, up-tempo, freeze. Now, the important thing to understand with being an up-tempo team is you have to practice all the tempos that you are going to use in a game if you want to be effective. You have to practice switching in and out of those tempos if you're going to be effective. You have to practice making personnel changes if there are personnel changes if you're going to be effective. A lot of times you'll see, I'm always looking for different videos and clinic tips and anything I can get to make myself and my program better. And a lot of times when I look at up-tempo film, I always see teams that are super high, ultra up-tempo, but the 5 or 6 minute clip is at the same pace with the ball snapped on the same cadence all the time. So you'll see college teams in the spring and they're ripping up and down the field and the ball gets set and they get set and they come up and they say, hey, black, ready? And they go, okay? But you never see the tempo change. And for us, because we operate this way every down, and this is the manner of our offensive operating system, we have to incorporate tempo changes into our drills that we do every day with our players. One of the easiest ways to do that, okay, is an on-air tempo drill that I'm going to go through right now and kind of describe to you the best that I can on the board. And then once spring football starts, I'm going to videotape some of our up-tempo drills on air, and I'm going to put those up on the blog so you can actually see the players going through it. All right, what you're going to do as an offensive staff, what you're going to do is you're going to put your offensive play caller, you're going to put your signal caller, okay, on the sideline with your team and the immediate personnel that needs to be ready to go in the game. What do I mean by immediate personnel? Fullbacks, tight ends, extra receivers, extra backs, whatever, any guys that you have that you feel, all right, might be potentially in a game on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon need to be with you right on the sideline. I think that's very important. All right, we're going to put all those people on the sideline, and we're going to start every drill from the sideline in a huddle with a play called like we do every offensive series. Every offensive series for us during a game will always start with a play called from the sideline with all 11 offensive players in a huddle. So we're going to start that way with the play caller and the coach, whoever's responsible for the signals, all right, the entire team with the offense in the huddle, and then the personnel that needs to go in and out of the game ready to go on the sideline right there. First play is going to come from the sideline. All right, coach is going to give the team the first play. First play is going to come from the sideline, and then they are going to sprint onto the field. Okay? You need to have a coach, all right? There needs to be a coach out on the field that is responsible for spotting the football. And it's very important that they understand that we want to spot the football from hash to middle to hash to middle to hash, all right? And we want to be progressing 10 yards down the field. That's going to force our offense to find the next football, okay, and get lined up where the next football is so that we can insinuate, okay, and we can try and replicate or duplicate, all right, what it's like in a game when the ball moves from place to place, the referee blows the whistle, and you got to get ready for, all right, the next formation, the next play call. All right, so we usually give that coach two different footballs, one that he can have to spot, the next one that he can spot so when he gets the ball back from whatever skilled player ends up with it, okay, he's already got a ball spotted so that our team can advance to the next area on the field, on the hash or wherever it is, all right, so that we can progress down the field. So what's going to happen is that coach is going to be responsible for setting the football. We're going to start in the middle of the field and we're going to come out, okay, and maybe we come out in a base 2x2 formation, all right, and the play call was already called from the sideline. Players are going to come out and they're going to run, all right, they're going to run the play call from the sideline. All right, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to find the football that the coach spotted. So let's say the next football the coach spotted is on that hash mark. All right, as soon as that play ends and we blow the whistle, the entire team is now going to sprint to the next landmark. All right, the quarterback is already looking to the sideline to the signal caller, and he's getting the next formation. All right, he's yelling out that next formation right now, and the team is sprinting to the ball, getting lined up in that formation. All right, So let's say, for argument's sake, the next formation, all right, happened to be a two-back set. Okay, so we sprinted to this area over here, all right, and we got into, all right, a two-back set. Well, one of the things that had to occur is maybe one of our players, maybe our H had to run off the field while our sniffer ran on the field. Okay? So, what's important is that you're trying to replicate the game and you're trying to get kids on and off the field in the fastest manner possible, like it's going to happen on Friday night. So on the sideline, the coach is going to signal a formation and he's going to start calling it out so that the players on the sideline understand that. So when the coach starts calling out the formation or the personnel grouping, that sniffer, one sniffer knows to come in and to start yelling for the H to come out of the game. That H knows that he has to sprint off the field, okay? He has to sprint off the field and the sniffer has to sprint onto the field, get into the formation called, okay? Now we're going to go through and we're going to run. Coach is going to signal the next play in. Receivers are going to get the play from the signal, all right? Quarterback's going to give the play to the linemen and the running backs, and we're now going to run that next play, okay? We're going to go from there, all right? And now, coach that's responsible for spotting the ball, he's going to go and maybe he sets it on this hash mark over here, all right? So now as soon as that last play is over, okay, as soon as that last play is over, our quarterback is looking to the sideline immediately. All right, the coach that's responsible for calling the plays and the signal caller are already giving him the next formation as that last play ends. He's yelling out the formation, all right, to the team so that we can sprint to the next football. So you can see maybe we went from middle to right hash to left hash in about 10-yard increments. We sprinted, at the end of every play, we sprinted to the ball, found the football, got lined up in the next formation. Now the receivers and the quarterback are going to get the signal from the signal caller. Now, this happens to be a three-back set, okay? This happens to be a three-back set. So what might have happened is we probably had, all right, maybe an extra sniffer coming on the field and a wide receiver coming off the field. So one of the things that we want to practice is sprinting on and off the field, calling out the position that you're going in for so that we never have 12 players on the field. All right, one of the things you got to make sure you understand, make sure that when your players line up and coming in and out of the game, they always have to be inside the numbers first before they line up so you don't get called for any illegal participation. If a receiver comes in and he's lined up on the left, he's got to go inside the numbers and then back out, okay, before they call the play. We always use the numbers as a landmark. We don't want to give the referees anything to look at. We always tell those guys, hey, go inside the hash mark before you line up. If you're lining up, let's say, to our bench, and we start yelling out a formation, don't just line up in a formation. Go inside the numbers first, and then go out to your position, okay? So maybe this was a three-back set with guys running on and off the field, okay? Maybe this was a three-back set, sniffer on, receiver off, whatever it may be, all right? We're going to get the signal from the coach that's on the side, okay? Coach is going to signal the plays in. Now, what else is that doing? We're working on communication. We're working on signals. We're working on the play caller and the signal caller being on the same page and working on the communication between those two to get the formations and the plays signaled incorrectly. We're working on the quarterback and the receivers seeing the signals, okay? We're making sure that all our signals are clear and there's no doubt that the kid, well, coach, I thought I saw this and I thought I saw that. So we're also working on our signal calling. We're working on getting personnel in and out of the game, sprinting on and off the field, while we're also working on getting lined up on the football and changing the tempo. All right, so how do we change the tempo? Well, what we'll do is we'll incorporate into the drill, okay, we'll incorporate our three different phases of tempo, okay? So we'll go from this first play from the sideline, and this first play will come on the field, all right, and this first play that we run will be running what we call base tempo, okay? So we'll run this first play from the sideline, we'll get up on the ball and we'll run it in base tempo, okay? The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the play caller keeps in mind that when we go to the next play, we want this next play, all right, for argument's sake on this hash mark, whatever it may be, okay? We want this next play to be an up-tempo play, okay? Why? Because we want to change the pace of the game for our kids, and we also want to be able to change the snap count. We want our kids to know the difference between going on one, going on first sound, all right? So we need to do that and incorporate that into the drill. All right? So while guys are running in and on, they're running on and off the field, we're sprinting to the next spot, we're working on conditioning. At the same time, we're also changing the pace of the game and changing the tempo. We want to make the game situation for our kids ordinary for us, but not so ordinary for the defense. So all those changes in tempo and snap count, all those things we're doing, we do that every day. We're going to go from this hash mark over here, okay? Now the coach is going to set it up and we're going to run a play from this hash mark over here now. All right, so we've sprinted to that spot, all right? We've got in our next formation, and now from here, maybe we want to run a freeze play. All right, so now we went from base, up-tempo to freeze in 3 consecutive plays. And we've made our kids change, all right, their way of thinking, and we've made them concentrate on the tempo that we're running, all right, and on what the snap count is. So we concentrate on not jumping off sides, not wasting 5 yards, not penalizing ourselves and putting us in bad down and distance or yardage situations, okay? So it's very important that the coach calling the plays, all right, understands how to change the tempos up to make it as tough as possible on the kids. When we get down to the other side of the field, okay, all we'll do is we'll just flip now, and we'll have the offense coming out. So we'll flip the field now. Coach will be ready to spot the ball, and now we'll put the offense on this side, okay, working back out. And we'll go through the same procedure. We'll go down the field in 10-yard increments with the ball going from the right hash to the middle to the left hash, and we'll change the tempos over and over, okay? The next thing we'll do is we'll run 2 up-tempos in a row, so we'll go up-tempo, and then we'll go freeze, okay? After the freeze play, we'll go short huddle, okay, back to freeze, back to up-tempo. So what we're doing is we're simulating the changes in pace in the game that are going to occur, okay, because there's really no way for us to determine what Friday night's game is going to look like, okay? We know we like to play fast. We know we're probably 70% up-tempo, We're probably 25% short huddle, and we're probably 5% freeze, all right? So we know we can practice along those percentages, but we never know how the game is going to go. Maybe our up-tempo stuff isn't good to us Friday night, and we got to go back to short huddle, okay? Maybe we're doing a great job freezing on Friday night, and we freeze a bunch because we like the looks that we're getting, and the check with me system is working a little bit better. Maybe the other team can handle up-tempo, and we never freeze or we never huddle. We go up-tempo right down the field. I've had games where I've gone 7 or 8 plays in a row, straight up-tempo, same snap count, let's rip. Okay, so you have to be able to practice all the tempo changes. You have to be able to do all those things and simulate a game situation for your kids, because you have an idea going into Friday's game what it's going to be like, but you have no idea what the outcome or what the results are going to be and how that game plan might change. If we get up on a team and we're up 2 or 3 scores, we may be a bunch of short huddle trying to get the clock to go 25 seconds. Okay? So we don't always have to be 100 miles an hour up tempo. We can be short huddle, we can be freeze. So you need to practice all 3 of those, and my suggestion to you is jump in and out of all of them frequently and make your kids change the tempo and change the snap count frequently so they understand how to do it in the game. If you do it correctly, when you get good at it, it becomes a conditioning drill. We make the kids sprint to the football. We also make them sprint 10 yards after every play. Even if it's the quarterback after a handoff, he's got a 10-yard sprint. Offensive linemen go through their steps to make sure they're blocking plays correctly. We're worried about pad level, proper steps in the run game. If somebody's pulling, the skip pull or whatever, the flat pull, whatever it may be. And then they got to go 10 yards. We're looking at receivers' routes to see if they're correct. We're also looking at receivers' angles. All right, the angles they depart to block to make sure that they understand what the play's called. Okay, so we're looking at all those little things while also sprinting and working on conditioning at the same time. All right, so that's just a generic explanation of how we do an up-tempo drill, how we change the tempo, how we get personnel in and out to try and simulate a game-like scenario. Okay, one of the things you have to understand as an up-tempo football team, videotaping your practices is of the utmost importance. You need to videotape as many practices, if not all your practices, as you possibly can. Why? Because when you practice, we are never going to stop a team session to let a coach individually coach his position. Coaches are going to have to learn how to coach on the fly. Get to their players. While we're calling the next formation and the next play, you need to be on your player, running back and forth saying, hey, that last set you were supposed to double the 3 to the backside linebacker, you never got off. We're not going to stop. You need to be up there telling that guy that, hey, that last you were supposed to run the corner route. You ran, all right, the snag route instead of the corner route. Hey, you were supposed to have curl on that. Hey, you had the tag and you didn't get it done. You were supposed to run the wheel. You need to get those things communicated to your players, all right, while we're getting into formation. So the coaches have to move. The coaches have to be up-tempo, okay? So you have to understand how to change your practices, all right? So you have to videotape, because the videotape is where you're going to want to correct all your mistakes, because you're not going to have as much of a chance to stop, walk through. I've been in practices where coaches stop 2 or 3 times, and in 10 minutes they run 4 plays, okay? If we have a 10-minute period, we want to run 18 to 20 plays. We want to maximize our reps, all right? We want to get the most out of our time on the field. That's part of being an up-tempo team. That's part of the philosophy. I want my coaches to learn how to coach on the fly. The game happens very fast on Friday nights. We got to be able to make split time or real fast split decisions without sitting around and mulling over, well, I think we could do this, I think we can do that. So coaching on the fly gets your assistant coaches more involved. It gets them to be better. Okay? Your scout team coach has got to be involved, because they need to be up-tempo, getting the guys lined up in the right look. If we need a certain coverage or a certain blitz, they got to get them lined up and communicate that. Okay? All right, so we're working a lot of different things here when we're up-tempo. We're working offense. We're working some defensive principles. Our coaches are working, and we're learning how to communicate, and we're learning how to practice, all right, at a not only a high level or a high intensity level or a high speed level, all right, but there's a high volume of reps that we're getting in our practice every day. So videotaping what you do is of the utmost importance. If you don't have a video camera or somebody that can videotape your practices every day, it's going to be real hard getting good at being an up-tempo team, all right, because you can't fix your mistakes properly. Your mistakes need to be fixed on film. Your mistakes need to be fixed after practice with your kids. If you have huddle and you can set up notes to send to your kids, that's great. If they can watch practices at home, that's great. Okay, but this is a mode of operation, all right? This is not a flash in the pan. This is not a hobby. This is a lifestyle for us. It's how we operate. So we're going to practice that way every day. We're going to try and carry that into the weight room. We're going to try and carry it into meetings. We're going to try and carry it into walkthrough. All right? We want to be up-tempo in everything we do in our program. Okay? So if you're interested in going up-tempo, hopefully some of these things will help. Hopefully this drill will help you. Hopefully, all right, understanding how to streamline your communicating or your communication process and procedure for your players. Learning all the shortcuts it takes to be a successful up-tempo team. Okay? As always, remember, the goal is, okay, to play fast. You can't play well until you play fast. See you guys next time.